This segment brought to you by Bob Schwartz Financial. Values, commitment, transparency.
Visiting with Bill Copeland, Vice President of Crude Supplies for Coffeyville Resources, which is CVR Refining in Coffeyville, Kansas. We're talking about the very early years of the oil and gas industry in Kansas. Of course, in the Kansas and Oklahoma region, oil is in our DNA. It's part of our legacy. But a lot of us don't really understand how much of pioneers that those people early in the oil industry were. Crude the industry was, no pun intended.
Talk about Kansas. It picked up around the 1880s. There was drilling for natural gas, and Paola is a good example. They found natural gas, and they helped to light up the town. They started to promote that. They tried to promote industry there from Kansas City because Paola is close to Kansas City. Paola was another town that they just lit up the town with these early gas supplies, and they built smelters there that we talked about. Like, they built these zinc smelters that would manufacture all the products that they'd use on the farms. Post the Civil War times in Kansas were quite a difficult period for people, and then post Civil War, I think it was just people just trying to survive. They knew that there was these oil seeps on these different creeks in Kansas. There was interest, but it took a long time to get the investors and the equipment to drill for those. In the 1880s, when they began drilling, they only drilled for gas that could be piped to a town that was close by for the lighting and for the factories. If they did find oil, it would have to be put in a barrel. The only closest refinery was actually in Chicago. That limited the economics for oil exploration in Kansas.
Now, I'm sorry, when you say a barrel, are you talking a 55-gallon barrel?
Yes.
So that's where the barrel of oil comes from, is in the early days they shipped crude oil in barrels.
Were originally the whiskey barrels, and that standard is still used today when we talk about barrels of oil and around the world. That's where it all started.
So truly, they were trying to get natural gas. The oil, if you will, was a byproduct, probably not even all that welcome, from the fact that they had to barrel it and ship it all the way to Chicago. At some point, somebody figured out that we got to do something different.
Yes, that's right. So as that century continued on in the late 1890s, there was prominent oil seep along the Verdigris River, which is near Neodesha, Kansas. And there was a gentleman by the name of William Mills. He wanted to drill for oil and gas at that location. Kyle, they were right on the banks of the river. We don't do that anymore, but they were very close to the banks of the river. He drilled a well with a cable tool rig to 830 feet. It took him 22 days. And if your listeners ever have time, in Bartlesville, there's an exact replica of a cable tool rig. I'm talking this correct height, size, dimension. It even works. They fired up for a community event. The Norman number 1 was drilled in 1892 on the banks of the Verdigris River. It got its name from a local blacksmith named T.J. Norman. It was drilled in his backyard, actually in his garden along the banks of the river, and there's a museum there today commemorating that Norman number 1. It sparked an oil boom when that was drilled, so there was quite a few wells drilled, but there was no market. That's when Standard Oil stepped in from Pennsylvania. They were based in Cleveland, Ohio, but their production was in Pennsylvania. They had a lot of money and power. They offered to build a refinery in this area in Neodesha. They actually bought out these original investors in the Norman number 1 and built this refinery, the first refinery in Kansas. They started out, it was relatively small, about 500 barrels a day, but it grew as the area production started to grow. Standard Oil, they were very good at processing and refining oil and marketing products, and they had a lot of technical expertise to do it right and get clean, successful products to the farms.
I'm Bob Schwartz, and I've devoted the last 43 years to helping Kansans reach their retirement goals and to protect the family farm. At Bob Swartz Financial, we believe everyone should be able to live the retirement they've always dreamed of. Our team of professionals can help you create an efficient strategy using a variety of investment vehicles to help you address your financial needs and your concerns. Bob Swartz Financial values commitment and transparency.